Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Conservative, not bitter indeed, my friends. You have ever so wisely and successfully tuned in to America's home for conservative, not bitter talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. My pleasure to be here today. Let's see, what do I want to talk about today? I want to talk a little bit about the claims being made, starting with Bono, that the cuts to USAID, which is the way to say that. I don't know, everyone just says USAID, but it's USAID that's going out the door to countries, and a lot of money laundering and shenanigans happening along the way. But Bono claims, and now leftists are claiming, that Doge cuts to USAID in particular have killed 300,000 people, of which they say 200,000 of them are children. I've got that to talk about. Let's see. We've got CNN out there pointing out why Trump was correct in saying that Americans have lost their faith in higher education. We've got what's happening with, between Russia and Ukraine, we're on the verge of, it's just a mess over there, and it has been for some time. And of course, we have what happened over the weekend in Boulder, Colorado, where an Egyptian, a terrorist from Egypt, attacked a group of Jewish protesters, I guess, in Boulder with a homemade flamethrower. It's remarkable stuff, which opens up a larger conversation about lone wolf attacks. And there's a bunch of other stuff in the stack of stuff as well, my friends. That's where we are headed today. Other things might pop up along the way as well. But, my friends, before I do that, it's worth noting that it's a little bit crazy to think about this, but we, as human beings, as people, oftentimes spend more time taking care of our cars than we do our hearts. In fact, yesterday I had to get a tire repaired. There was an accident not far from the home here a couple of days ago where a car had, as I understand it, the driver had a seizure or some sort of episode while driving. His wife was fortunately with him. His foot hit the gas pedal. She grabbed the wheel from the passenger side, again, as I understand it. They hit a couple of cars along the way, but she diverted it off the road, got into the middle. There's bean and cornfields around here. She got off the road into the cornfield. I don't know if she threw it in neutral. I don't know what happened, but the car eventually stopped. A couple of cars were hit in the path. I'd heard that the car was going as fast as like 80 through town. Anyway, everybody's okay, but there was damage. There was damage along the road. Well, there was damage to cars, but there was debris on the road, and I think my tire found a little bit of that debris, and I had to get a tire replaced. And so it's important to take care of our vehicles. I couldn't have continued riding on that tire. In fact, the tire lost air pressure, all of its air pressure. It's a dually, but I had to get that fixed. And taking care of our cars is important, but how much more important is it to take care of our hearts? We don't just, we change the oil in cars, we rotate the tires. I had them go ahead and do that yesterday as well. We work to keep everything running smoothly, but when it comes to our health, sometimes we just don't have the same level of maintenance. And so one way you can maintain your heart health is to take Solti. It's an all-natural, clinically proven way to lower cholesterol. There's no prescriptions. There's no doctor visits. It's not a drug. All you have to do is take 2 Solti soft gels a day. And folks, it has been proven to work to lower the cholesterol of many folks, and it might do the same for you. So go to Soltea.com, Soltea. Promo code Todd is going to save you 50% off your first purchase and get you free shipping to boot. It's a very affordable product. It's a great way to start. Again, I take the product as well. Soltea.com, Soltea, promo code Todd. All right, let us begin here. Let us begin with this claim that 300,000 people, and 200,000 of which, according to the left, have died since Doge made its cuts and recommendations for cuts to USAID. So, I warned you, and you knew this too, that this was going to happen. I warned you that when there were anything at all that happened pertaining to the way our government, just something that our government was doing, if there was any negative or something negative or incompetence or anything, it would be blamed on the Doge cuts, right? I mean, this happened when we had the tragic airline incident where the helicopter collided with the airline, the passenger aircraft, landing at Reagan National Airport. This was immediately brought up as a consequence for cutting Doge and so forth, or excuse me, the Doge cuts and the budget cuts and so forth. It happens, and it's going to happen with anything. It's going to happen with anything, and not only that, not only will it be blamed, will the cuts be pointed to as the cause of some of these terrible things, they'll also sometimes just make things up and then basically dare you to prove it wrong. And this is kind of one of those things. This is an article, townhall.com, written by Matt Vespa. He writes, "I'm a little shocked it took this long for a hoax of this nature to drop. It's meant to attack the work done by the Department of Government Efficiency," that's Doge, of course. "Undoubtedly, it was meant to deliver a haymaker to Elon Musk, who is leaving the Trump administration for now, which is why OMB Director Russell Vought is taking the Doge reins." Still, in the left's tantrum over Doge, continues to be an animating exercise for these clowns. On Friday, oh boy, I can't pronounce this fella's name, liberal commentator Anand G, it's a long G name, I'm not even going to try, spoke about the pain Doge has caused, whipping out some fake study by a Boston University professor, so you know it's flawed, showing that USAID cuts have killed 300,000 people, 200,000 of which are children. So there's a clip here. Let me play this clip and you can get the full context of what's being said and alleged here.
I just want to say, we can tell the Elon story and this kind of disciplining by democracy as a story of someone leaving. But there is pain in the wake of these tariffs, and there's pain in the wake of what Elon did. He talked about bringing the wood chipper to USAID. Brooke Nichols, Boston University professor, mathematician, figured out what is the effect of this. They have a tracker, 300,000 deaths, according to a Boston University professor, because of the aid cuts so far, 200,000 of them children. Okay, Vietnam War, y'all remember that? 60,000 U.S. service members died. This is 5 times more deaths, according to the Boston University study, because of aid cuts since January of this year. So Elon Musk is leaving, but he's also leaving a legacy. But I think it's really important that people remember The courts work. Joe and I have been having a 10-year conversation about our institutions standing up or not. The courts work still, not perfectly. There's problems, but courts work, lawsuits work, and pressure works, and people raising their voice works. And it's not just that Washington always wins. I think the people always win.
Okay, so that's the claim. Some University of, Boston University professor has done some study. There's no curiosity here. By the way, I am looking. This was during MSNBC's morning. Well, is it during Morning Joe? I guess it's. I see Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski on the screen. I also see there's a grand total of 8 people on this screen. 8 people, split screen. 8 people. Anand G here is making all sorts of bodacious claims, and he's referencing some study by some Boston, I guess a lone wolf here in his own studies, saying that 300,000 people have died basically since, I'm going to say, in 4 months. The months of February, March, April, and now May. So you're supposed to believe, and I'm supposed to believe, that because we cut money that was being spent by USAID. Remember some of the shenanigans that were uncovered. Remember some of the things that they were involved with that had nothing to do with providing aid to anybody. There were a lot of sketchy, fraudulent things looking like were happening with USAID. Now we're supposed to believe, if you take 300,000 people, and you say 300,000 people died in 4 months, if you divide that by 4 and get your monthly average, that's 75,000 people a month. In general, there are 4 weeks in a month. So we're supposed to believe that, 19,000 people a week are dying. There's 7 days in a week. So, we're roughly, say, 2,500 people a day are dying because of cuts to USAID. Does this pass the smell test at all for you? Remember, for 75,000 people a month, roughly, these numbers, they're not correct. I don't even want to say if these numbers are correct, because they're clearly just made up out of the clear blue sky. He's got an app or some tracker. And I guess we're supposed to look at it and just say, wow, this is terrible. And by the way, it would be terrible if this is, of course, what's happening. Of course, then I also have other questions. That say why, again, the left hates this country. The left, and there's no doubt that this country's done a marvelous things for the life as we know it this side of heaven. And again, it's not perfect. That's not what I'm saying, but it is, compared to other places in the world, it's been a source of a lot of good in this world today. The folks on the left hate this country, but yet now they're saying if we don't foot the bill to take care of, I guess, people everywhere on the planet Earth, that there's going to be 2,500 people die every day. That's just from USAID cuts. I'm sure we're just scratching the surface here. 60,000 servicemen and women died in the Vietnam War. So you're telling me that more people died in 1 month of cuts from USAID than in the entire Vietnam War. That's what I'm supposed to believe. That's what I'm supposed to believe. Folks, this is, I don't know what to say if this sounds right to you, because I know to you it doesn't, but really to the people out there that this sort of thing that they don't have any question or curiosity about this. Again, the other 7 people on this split screen at MSNBC had no interest. They had no curiosity. They had no desire to just ask any questions. How did he come up with these numbers? What exactly is happening to people now in the wake of USAID cuts that wasn't happening to them previously? How did the money that was being sent through USAID. What was it doing that's not being done now, right? Explain this to us. Don't just tell me some professor, a nameless professor, by the way. At least he didn't mention the professor's name. Just some college professor at Boston University said so. He's got a tracker here. Look, you can go and look. It's got graphics and numbers. Just believe it. Looks like it's correct. It's on the web. It's online. You can go there and look at the numbers. Yeah, it's got to be right. Going back to the article here, it says the smug atmosphere says it all. Some college professors said this, so it must be true. The shoddy and plagiarist-infested confines of academia said something, so it must be true. Again, reading from Matt Vespa's article here. Where's the evidence or the study? I also don't trust any app. Some MSNBC wacko says tracks do death cuts. That's worded weird. And like most of the MSNBC's commentator core, he gets ahead of his skis by trying to compare these phantom deaths to the Vietnam War. Yeah, he writes, I'm calling BS on this. Now, this was also echoed by Bono on Joe Rogan's program. They had some back and forth. That was actually echoed the day before. Maybe that's what got this guy to say it on the program here. But does this compute for you? Does this add up for you? Does this make sense to you? 300,000 deaths in roughly 4 months, 75,000 deaths on average a month because the United States, because the Trump administration, because Doge has cut funding to USAID. 75,000, that's roughly 17, 18,000, whatever it is, a week. 2,500 people a day. Does that compute? 2,500 people a day because our government are dying because our government isn't funding whatever it is that we were funding that was providing life-saving nutrition or whatever it is. They just accept this. I mean, it is truly remarkable what they're able to get away with, sometimes without even raising the slightest bit of interest or concern. I would like to know this information. I would like to know what exactly it is that's leading to this scenario. So that's out there. And of course, this is what the left is going to do. Anytime that there is, well, it's not just blaming something that happened. Well, the tornadoes that went through, I don't know if I was ready to talk about this. I don't know if we talked about this or not. I think we did on this program. But the tornadoes that went through Kentucky a couple of weeks ago. Remember? Yeah, we did talk about this because I told you that they were saying that there were cuts to the National Weather Service. Then they went as far to say, who was it? Who was the person? I remember playing the soundbite now. Some leftist. I mean, they're all the same, so in that sense, it doesn't matter. But the person said, look, they made national cuts to the National Weather Service. But then they went on to say, we have no reason to think that these cuts were the cause of anything that happened regarding the loss of life or the people not getting warnings or something like that. But we want to mention it anyway. That's how this game is played. The reality is, if these budget cuts had not taken place, the scenario in Kentucky would have been identical, and no one would have questioned the lack of, whatever it was, the lack of awareness or the lack of the willingness to declare a tornado emergency in a particular area. But those sorts of things have long since been the problems, my friends. Anyway, this is the way that it works. And if they can't just find enough things to blame that actually happened and to blame those for to blame budget cuts on causing these bad things to happen. If there's not enough examples of that, they'll just make up some number like they did here and say that the United States cuts have led to 2,500 deaths a day for the past 4 months. Again, it's insane to me that this is even given the slightest bit of seriousness on MSNBC. But this is where we are because, of course, if it's attacking Trump, they don't care. They don't care. They'll run with it. They'll support it. They'll take it seriously, whatever the case. Anyway, there needs to be curiosity. There needs to be an explanation. If something like this is legitimately happening, which we all know it isn't, but if it was, then explain it to us. Don't just say, hey, some dude at Boston University says it. Anyway, that's all I want to say about that. What a bunch of, it's just the amount of fear-mongering, the amount of blaming us for trying to be fiscally responsible, for reining in the waste, fraud, and abuse, for bringing an end to some of these ridiculous practices that have been happening within our federal government, the amount of just grief that causes, and then to just make up a number. It's incredible. The number is astronomically large. There's no reason, at least given by this particular individual, that this is true. Yet everybody runs with it. Everybody runs with it. So, all right, friends, I want to shift gears here in just a moment. Before I do that, my friends, if you're in sales, you know that results are what matter. And no one delivers results like Matt Easton and Easton University. Matt's system is one of the best, if not the best, that I've ever seen in the sales environment. Teaching and training folks how to be better salespeople. It's practical, it's proven, it's built to help you sell smarter, close faster, and make more money. And if you sign up to be a student of Easton University through our website, you're going to get a welcome call from Matt. He's going to jump on the phone. He's going to talk you through your sales challenges, help you get started with the program, help you hit the ground running. My friends, you'll get one-on-one help from one of the best in the business. But you have to take action. The action you need to take is visiting toddhuffshow.com/Easton, EASTON. Do that now to claim your personal call with Matt when you sign up to become a student of Easton University, toddhuffshow.com/Easton. Friends, if you follow the system, I fully believe it's going to pay off. Take that first step today. You'll thank me later. Quick timeout, my friends. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Going to shift gears. Although in the break, Oz said Todd, the professor is a woman. I'm just curious why these leftists hid the fact that this was a woman professor. That seems like a war on women to me. I don't know why that isn't the first thing that they told us about. This could fix the problem of making the government smaller for the left and attack the patriarchy at the same time. This is a wonderful opportunity. I know word on how this professor identifies. I don't know that. That's an important part of this equation too. But biologically, the gender she was assigned at birth was female. I feel like that's important. They probably should have led with that. I don't know the race of this professor. They should have led with that too. If this is a marginalized professor, we need to know that. This data could probably be trusted even more in the minds of the left. These people are insane. Anyway, my friends, I don't want to talk anymore about that. I do want to talk a little bit about what happened in Boulder, Colorado. And this is a serious situation that we have on our hands here. And we've had it on our hands for some time. So you have an illegal, these are the facts. There is an illegal alien who is from Egypt, who is Muslim, who is a terrorist, who lived in was in Boulder, Colorado, who has been accused of carrying out a terrorist attack, a violent attack on a Jewish group of people. And as he was engaging in the terrorist activities, the terror attack, he was chanting or yelling, "Free Palestine," according to reports. DrewBerquist.com is where I found this story. You've followed this. You've seen a lot about this. But there's more to this. An Egyptian national accused of carrying out a violent attack on a Jewish gathering in Boulder, Colorado, was confirmed to be in the United States illegally after overstaying a visa granted in 2022. The suspect, identified as 45-year-old Mohammed Soliman, was taken into custody at the scene Sunday afternoon following reports of multiple individuals being injured by Molotov cocktails and other incendiary devices. Now, it's been reported, by the way, pausing the article for a moment, that this individual was using a flamethrower of sorts, a homemade flamethrower. The incident occurred near the intersection of 13th Street and Pearl Street in downtown Boulder. I've been to Boulder one time. I went there with the good bad guy years ago. It's a nice town. It's a really pretty town. Beautiful. It's on the, the outskirts of Denver or whatever, but a beautiful area. But it's now, in this case, been at least hijacked by a Islamofascist. By the way, that's what we're dealing with. Islamofascism is what was targeting, the ideology targeting these Jewish folks who were simply living their lives, by the way. Local authorities responded quickly and secured the area. While paramedics treated the injured, police advised the public to avoid the area during the emergency response. Several people, including children, were hospitalized following the attack. Boulder police have not released specific information regarding the total number of victims or the severity of their injuries, but the FBI confirmed that the attack is being investigated as a case of ideologically motivated violence. Ideologically motivated violence. Not the least bit shocking, my friends. So that's what happened. It was reported on MSNBC. Now, this individual is Egyptian. He's here illegally. MSNBC says that he was a white male. Just listen to just ridiculous stuff. Listen to this.
As far as the investigation itself,
boy, what happened there? I did not do what it was supposed to do.
we're still trying to.
All right, that disconnected. But after the attack, MSNBC said that the individual was a white male. That's what the clip was going to say. Instead, it was not playing through the system. It was just playing out the speaker of my device here. So they claim he was a white male. So a couple of things about this. Number one, the person was here. Actually, I think it's in this clip. It could have been another clip. I think it was that clip that I'm trying to play. The journalist, basically, that they have to admit, maybe it's not that clip. There's another clip I have here in the stack that shows, or that says, look, the individual was here under Biden's policies. They overstayed a visa. They applied for asylum. They were given a 2-year work permit, and basically nothing was done about it since that point in time. Now that person has allegedly made incendiary devices, homemade flamethrower, whatever, uses Molotov cocktails, assaults, violently attacks Jewish folks on the streets of Boulder, Colorado with fire, and is yelling, "Free Palestine." That's what happened. This is what happens in Biden's America. These are Biden's rules. This is he was allowed to stay here because Biden didn't do anything about it. His administration did nothing about this. Now, I've seen other people It might have been that same report where the journalists had to admit that while this individual could have still tried to apply for a work permit, the chances of this person staying here under Trump's policies would be incredibly unlikely. So you have a scenario, again, this is compare and contrast. We have a person who's still here because the Biden policies allowed him to be here. And now we see what he's done, the carnage that he has left in his wake. These are the people, by the way, the Trump administration is trying to get out of our country. These are the people who endorse these kinds of ideological bits of mayhem, this abject evil, the people who speak about this, promote this on college campuses, who have been given student visas. These are the people the State Department is trying to get out of this great country. You see, there's a reason for this. It's not because the person is Egyptian. It's not because the person is Muslim. It's not because of the color of their skin. It's not because of the accent they have. It's because of the ideas that they embrace. They don't embrace, used to come to this country, there was a process. When I was in school, they used to teach us about this process of assimilation, right? The United States is a melting pot of different peoples and cultures, but there's this concept, this underlying belief that there is an American culture too. There is something that we all share in common, and it's important for there to be assimilation. It doesn't mean that all people have to be the same, but it does mean that there is something that that being American means. And being American and being able to be in this country means that while you can have differences of opinion, different ideas, different beliefs, different religions, you cannot and should not and will not be allowed to engage in violence against people who disagree with your ideas. And we've lost a sense of that. We've lost, because of this, assimilation's not a thing anymore for the immigration process. At least when some folks are running the show, we've lost a bit of that. It's when you become American, you're American, right? This is your country. This is regardless of your heritage, your background, your national origin, your all that stuff, your national language, the language you were born, that you spoke as a young child or whatever, those things, we can put all those things aside and say, I'm American. It's one of the things that, I don't know, is a little bit perplexing sometimes to people who say, you become an American, but yet you still, you're promoting your home country, you're waving its flag. Why don't we wave the American flag? We're not saying you shouldn't have some pride in where you came from, but we're American first and foremost here. But that's not how some people look at it. They look at it as a ticket. In this guy's case, it appears it looks at it as a ticket, as an opportunity to go to a country that has people that he hates, and he can target them. He can use the freedoms that we have to be weaponized, using them for evil, and weaponize them against people with whom he disagrees, trying to inflict terror on the American people, in this case, the Jewish population. But do we have more of this to be worried about? That's a bigger question. I want to talk about that on the other side of the break. My friends, sit tight. You're listening to Conservative Not Bitter Talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. As we look at this lone wolf alleged terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, it raises the question, or it reminds us of some things that we have been told. We've been told things that we have known, things that we probably could figure out and at least be mindful of on our own. It reminds us of what the threat is. What is this threat that we all face here in this country of these sorts of we can call them lone wolf attacks, but the coordination of these lone wolf attacks, that's really, in my mind, the question, you've seen or heard people talking about some of these threats. You know, just by using your own common sense, that the open and porous border we had under the previous administration, we know that we know that there were lots of terrorists that were crossing that southern border. We know that they entered the United States. It is suspected that they have established these sleeper cells or increased the number of the sleeper cells, or at least increased the number of people that were in existing sleeper cells. And so, excuse me, I had a cough there. But the sleeper cells are, embedded terrorists in this country that are kind of keeping a low profile, who are, we believe, planning, orchestrating, anticipating some sort of future attack on this nation. We know that is a risk. We know that is a threat, and we know that they were given the opportunity. Just this previous administration, the Biden administration, it's remarkable to me how no one holds these folks accountable. Well, not in the media anyway, not in the public light. I mean, you've got Republicans who will bring stuff up. Of course, Trump talks about some of these things as well. But the number of things they did to put you and your country at grave and imminent danger is remarkable. So there were people that came across our border. And listen, it's one thing if someone slips past the defenses, if they were extra, I don't know, if they beat the system. But we weren't even, the system at the time wasn't even to try to stop these folks from coming in. There was no attempt, hear me say this, there was no attempt to keep these bad actors out of the country. There just simply wasn't. It was a game. It was, they knew the risk, and they chose to let that risk exist in our country and to be, illegally immigrated into this country. That's what the Biden administration did. I've cited a couple of times reports that there were Stinger missiles that were smuggled across the southern border, and that it's believed that those Stinger missiles were, in the minds of terrorists, they were hopeful in using it to target Trump Force One when Trump was still a candidate, not using Air Force One, but to target that aircraft and try to take it out of the sky. That was a real threat. I don't know if those missiles have been discovered. I haven't heard anything else about that, but that was in the news back maybe a year or so ago. I don't know. That's what we were dealing with. And so now you have people who are in this country, more of them, who are hell-bent on carrying out acts of terrorism. You could say that the October 7th attack of 2023 could be a type of, a model for the type of attack where you have multiple coordinated in some sense, but independent in another sense, attacks that happen simultaneously. It's kind of what happened on October 7th, where you had the storming of the nation of Israel. You could have the storming of cities around the country, people using all sorts of things, targeting high trafficked areas, malls, schools, churches, events, sporting events. I mean, any number of things, coordinating them to wreak as much death and destruction as possible. That's what we're up against here. And is this guy, it's certain that there's many more like him. The question remains, how many of these attacks are planned? How many of these things are just individuals who say, I've had enough. It's my job now. It's my duty to go out there and engage in jihad, which is absolutely insane. But, that's what we are truly dealing with. So be vigilant, my friends. Be vigilant indeed, because this is a real, clear, present danger in this nation today. And they're sleeping, right? They're quiet. They're not drawing attention. They're probably planning. They're probably coordinating and orchestrating. And what does that mean? What does that look like? And is this a part of that? Is this a precursor of things to come? Is this just one individual? At some point, we have to say we don't know, but we also have to be wise enough to realize that those who are on the side of the Islamo-fascists, they are 100% committed to the cause of terrorism against the United States. I got to go, my friends. Have a great day, SDG.